Hi everybody, this is my presentation over paraprofessional/collaborator training, and I did mine over best practices on inclusion. So why exactly is inclusion important? So inclusion starts with the belief that all students have the right to feel safe, supported, and included at the school. Inclusion allows students with disabilities to share an integrated learning experience in general education classroom with their peers, which is very important. All school staff, including paraeducators and collaborators, play an important role in making inclusion services successful for all students. By creating an effective, inclusive classrooms, everyone has to make sure that they are working together to benefit all of the students. I think that this second point in here is very important because we want to make sure that all of our students are included and they don't feel left out at any given point in time. So I had looked up some resources that show just how important inclusion is. The first resource that I'd come across when searching was an article that tells all about paraeducators and their role in the inclusive classrooms. This article actually talks about how important it is to have paraeducators and collaborators in the classroom to ensure that the students that need extra help are getting that. This would be a great tool for anybody to reference to at any time. Even the paraeducators and collaborators are perfect help in any classroom, even if students don't need the extra help. They can always help out the general education teacher or help out the students that just have questions that the general education teacher can't really get to at the time. They're just a very big help, and they are not just there for the students that need extra help. So that resource was actually the one at the bottom, the Core Scholars. On the second resource that I had come across, it had tips for paraeducators and collaborators when being in the actual classroom. It covers many topics that I think would be a really big help to them. It is always good to have a list of what you can improve on or what you can keep on working on very well when it comes to bettering a student's education. So that resource was actually this Huron School District one at the top. I think that by paraeducators and collaborators having tips, I think that is a very, very important thing for them to have, just in case they might get on, maybe they might have a bad day someday. They can always just look over those tips and collect themselves from day one. And then I found some factors of inclusion that should be considered by paraeducators. So the first one is the learning environment. If the learning environment isn't going to get that inclusive partnership between the students, then it's just not going to work out. We need to have our special education students in the general education classrooms to get that inclusive mentoring. And then the second one is the lesson plans. We want to make sure that the lesson plans actually include what we are going to do to make sure that our lessons are inclusive at any given time. And the third one is the presentation of lessons. Once again, we want to make sure that our special education students are not feeling left out at any given moment, or if they're, so to speak, feeling different at any given moment. We want to make sure that the presentation doesn't show them that they are being treated differently, that we are treating everybody on the same exact level. Then the fourth point is the lesson materials. And then once again, we want to make sure that we have a lesson planned out that is going to involve all of the students and not make one think that they're different than the other. And then the last thing is the assessment of students' knowledge. And I also came across some best practices for inclusion. The first one says using the principles for universal design for learning. This can allow us to create instructional goals, methods, materials, and assessments that will work for all students. The second one is cooperative learning and peer tutoring. This allows students to use their strengths to work as a team with their peers. Peer tutoring is very important to me. I think that by having that mentoring peer with you at all times is very important. I think that this can allow our special education kids to feel like they are no different than anybody else, of course, and they always have that friend with them that can help them with any assignment that they need, or if they just need a friend one day, then they are there for them. I think that peer tutoring should begin at the middle grade, if not elementary, and stay all the way to post-secondary transitioning. And then the third one I have is tiered lessons. Tiered lessons teach the same concepts with multiple levels of complexity built into the lesson. This would give students a choice to learn at a certain level, but it does not exactly overwhelm them. So if students want to go on in complexity, they can. If they want to stay, they can. Perfectly fine, whatever they choose to do. Once again, this is just making sure that they do not feel any different than anybody else. And then the last one is intentional teaching of learning strategies. This is important because it allows students to learn to be independent and successful in a general education setting. And then I have in parentheses, this way they will not feel left out or, quote, different. I know that a bunch of times whenever we do go into the classroom and paraeducators are in there and they're co-teaching, that special education students can kind of feel that they're maybe being targeted and that they're being treated differently because somebody else is there to aid them. But in this way, we want for them to learn the learning strategies, and we want them to be independent with the extra help, of course, but this way that they won't feel left out or, like I said, unquote, different. And then here are my resources that I have used for this presentation.